Hi, welcome back to the 1 in 20 show, where we're looking to find the next 1 in 20 successful individuals who are pursuing their passions with success so that you can too. And today I'm joined by Christopher Farro. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we made this work in a hotel room. We got it all going. USC weekend for you.
Malibu's burning down outside. It's all foggy.
Unfortunately, I felt last night when I was driving home from my girlfriend's house, like my lungs were hurting. And you were out.
Yeah,
like,
we were at the football game last night, and we looked down at our arms, and we had ash on our arms.
Wow.
I had a suitcase that was outside last night. When I grabbed it this morning, it literally looked like snow. I was brushing it off.
Oh my god,
it was sad.
It's crazy and sad. Well, so I wanted to start it off with, you know, we had Abe on the show a couple episodes ago. This will be in a couple weeks. So, and we were talking about SC, and you know, he had originally chose it for engineering, and then he shared with me, you know, how he met you and all that stuff. So I wanted to first ask you what brought you to SC from Hood River, Oregon.
Yeah. So I went to a small high school between Oregon and Washington, and there wasn't a lot of focus on school after college. And there was, I mean, we had our guidance counselors, but they were mostly trying to get people to graduate. And I fortunately had a medical bio teacher that was very influential for me in high school. And he, one day when we were talking after class, said, I was thinking of maybe going pre-med.
Yeah. And
he was telling me, you know, there's a really good program over at USC. And believe it or not, I had never heard of USC. We didn't watch a lot of college football in Hood River. And so I went on that night, and I was in the middle of applying for colleges, and I go online and I see that USC's application is closing in like 48 hours. The online application's got like 48 hours left. And so I scramble, I call my teacher, and he writes me a really nice recommendation letter. And I kind of scrapped together this application. I had been applying to a ton of different schools, a lot of reach schools, Stanford, Rice University, and I didn't know a lot about USC. And so I put together the resume and I sent it off. And I think because I spoke so from the heart in it, I didn't overanalyze the application. I really just was true to myself, and I didn't overthink it and try to spice it up with a bunch of college jargon. I just put everything down quickly and sent it off and didn't really think much of it. And when the applications were coming in, our acceptance letters, I got the letter and I looked at it. And at that point, I had done a little more research on USC. And I applied as undecided. I didn't apply to the medical school because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go pre-med. And I got the acceptance letter, and I remember my dad saying, like, you should probably go there. And everyone at like my med bio teacher was very excited for me. And I was still I was thinking mostly about skiing and what I wanted to do, how I could ski in college.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at University of Colorado and Utah, and I went on the USC website and was looking up extracurriculars, and I saw that they had a ski team program. And it was this was before Abe had really put a lot of his touch on the ski team. There wasn't a lot of information, there was some. And so I thought we were going to be skiing at Big Bear, which I was excited about, but it wasn't really what was grabbing me. And after doing a little more research, I realized that it was Mammoth, and I had never skied at Mammoth, but I knew there would be a lot more opportunity as a skier to be at Mammoth.
Sure.
And then I realized that was probably the best decision for me to get good skiing in and good good curricular academics. So I went to USC, and I remember flying into LA with my dad. He came to come check out the school with me before we decided for sure that I was gonna go there. Yeah. And I remember seeing the smog going over the wing. I'm from a small town in Oregon, in the trees. Like, we lived in the woods. And I remember seeing the smog go over the wing, and I'm like, Dad, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is crazy.
Sure.
But then once I was on campus, it's a beautiful campus and beautiful people, beautiful energy, and I realized, like, you're going to be in the school bubble. Like, it's okay. I needed to experience a big city. Definitely. Coming from a small town. Yeah. And I'm very, very happy that I did, because it led me to the friends that I have now. Look, I'm rocking my USC shirt. Yep. I was just at the game last night. I saw all my friends that went to USC, and I'm a diehard Trojan. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, and it's really cool, because then I guess my next and you know, people will like start to draw a line here between Abe's and your life connection as well. Because we talked pretty extensively about GoPro and everything that happened with him getting there. And that all was birthed out of the ski team and you guys making those videos.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of ask how you guys, like from your perspective, how that whole GoPro thing went from college to then, you know, then you guys going to shoot more than just skiing as friends and all that stuff, and how that became more of a thing with the launch videos and all that stuff.
So how we transitioned from the ski team to working at a company. And so I'll just keep going with the story kind of because it kind of flows from there. So when I got to USC at this point, I knew who Abe was because he was one of the officers on the ski team, and they had all the officers listed on the website. So I remember going to the ski team party. It was an introduction party. It was probably first week of school, second week of school, and I went to the party looking for Abe because I knew he was from Portland, which is an hour from where I grew up. And I knew he was running the ski team, and he shared a passion for freestyle. So I went looking for this kid, and I met him, and we were immediately best friends. Him and his girlfriend at the time, and all the officers. I immediately just clicked with all the officers that were running the team.
What year was that?
This was in 2000, and I graduated in 2007. So this would have been 2008 or 2007. You graduate in June. You go back. No, it's 2007.
Yeah. Wow.
And so he was a junior, and I was a freshman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was 2 years older than me. And we just became immediate best friends. And when you think of a ski team, there's a lot of partying that goes along with a ski team. But Abe and I did not care about partying at all. We would go to bed early, wake up early. We were skiing every day that we possibly could. And that morphed into making ski team videos because we just liked to promote ourselves in the team and kind of show family and friends what we were doing. To put the timeline in perspective, when I went to USC, I didn't have a Facebook. So Facebook wasn't around yet. Social media was just starting. Most kids, though, I'd say 90% of the kids in my dorm had Facebook by the time they got to USC. I was a late adopter to that. It's funny to think I was a late adopter to social media because now that's kind of how I get by in life. It's kind of my livelihood.
Crazy. That's so crazy.
So I get on Facebook, and so we started making ski team videos with just small Panasonic point and shoots. Ended up getting some GoPros at a trade show a couple years into doing this through Nick Woodman. The company was tiny. I think there were 7 people at the company at that point. The entire company's at this trade show.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so we get a couple of these GoPros, and we were using them. Abe was a big proponent of using them and trying them, and hats off to him because I didn't really see the value proposition at the time. We were using, they were like AAA rechargeable batteries. They didn't really work that well in the cold. They were kind of pain in the butt. You didn't have any feedback on what you were getting. There was no screen.
No screen
on them. And we kind of just stuck with it. We used them more as just experimental. We would hit jumps and just throw them in the air as high as we could because they were indestructible. Strap them onto our ski boots. And we ended up making something called the Epic Edit. And when the Epic Edit ended up getting to GoPro, the CEO was on Abe. He realized that Abe was a talented editor and wanted to hire him right out of college. And then as we graduated years after that, we just kept getting picked up. And GoPro hired the 5 of us that went to nationals. He hired every single one of us at one point or another to work at GoPro.
Oh my gosh.
So it's pretty cool to work at this growing company with all of your best friends doing what we loved. We were going to X Games. We were going to do tour, skiing with the best skiers in the world, making videos. It really was a perfect job out of college.
That's amazing. Well, and that's so cool because he even touched on, and I'm not going to make this all about Abe either because I know you guys are really close, but at the same time, like he touched on the social media thing like you did and said how they GoPro along with you guys at the same time, along with all the other athletes that were involved, that all like happened all at once. And social media boomed. Like Instagram came into play in 2011, and then the rest is history. Because there's no like camera company, let alone software company that I know that has 15 million followers on Instagram and has stoked the lives of so many people. You know?
The timing of social media with the development of the technology to use that social media couldn't have been more perfect for GoPro. When we first got Instagram, I remember it kind of spreading like wildfire through the media department at GoPro. It was almost like a competition where like whose Instagram is looking better. But at that time, people were just taking photos of their food and
early
their
on.
feet in the sand, and it was very, no one really knew the power of what social media was going to turn into. And so we started taking our GoPro photos, and it was a pain in the butt. We would get them onto the computer, editing them. Photoshop was around, Lightroom, I don't even remember, but touching up photos, that was a whole new workflow to everyone. Getting them to email, you'd have to email them back to yourself, pull it up if you had an iPhone, and then somehow get it into Instagram without losing any quality along the way. And
which is very possible at that point.
At that point. So we figured out the workflow, and we were always
Wow.
kind of trading tips on how to do it. And then people had never seen high fidelity photos on Instagram. It had all been cell phone photos with the old phones that were being used back then. So now there's high fidelity photos, and so we were able to get large followings really quickly in the beginning of Instagram. But we didn't know what that would turn into. It was still, we had these big followings, but we didn't engage with our audience. We didn't post that much. We really didn't care. We didn't realize the value that we had by having large followings until much later, and brands started using it as a marketing platform. And that was when we were like, oh wow, like, yeah, it was kind of right place, right time, and we were excited about getting photos on Instagram, and it kind of just worked out. The passion, the success followed the passion.
Yeah. That's super cool and exciting, and I know a huge part of your life has been travel since then even, and the cool thing is, like, in the group of GoPro people and people that I followed when I was a kid, I was like, okay, we'll talk about Caleb later too, your twin, but like you were always like the comic relief and also like the exciting part of the videos, and you were always the guy that Abe was filming, and then like I said, you got to travel to shoot with them, and then now I know that you do your personal travels as well, and you just got back from Africa.
Yes.
What part has travel played in your life to just everything that is going on? And you've just been all over the place.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate you recognizing me as the comic relief. I don't try to necessarily do that. I just try to be myself on camera, and that's who I am. And I think that's really important in social media too, because so much of it is, it's not really what reality is. And there's a certain component to my social media as well that's manufactured.
Sure.
But I overall try to be super authentic to myself and have that show in all of the videos that I make. It's not manufactured to the point where you're faking who you are.
No, for sure.
So if you're having fun, I think that's a reason why people like to follow you, if they can see that that's real.
But then there's so many on the other side that are totally fake. But like even today when I met you, I was like, oh, it's just the guy I've been following for years.
Yeah, I think you kind of chuckled when I said good morning to you this morning.
Yeah, I laughed because you said good morning, sunshine, and I was like, oh, I've heard him say that a million times. That's funny. Anyway.
So travel has played a huge role in my life, and I think just being at GoPro, travel was such a big part of what we were doing. We were tracking the best athletes, putting them in the best locations to get the best footage. And at first, before I went to USC, I hadn't been to that many countries. I think it was US, Canada, and Mexico. And then after GoPro, we started going to one place and the other place, and I really found this love to travel. And I had been shoestring traveling a little bit in college before GoPro, so I knew it was something I always wanted to do. And Baja, so I used to go to Mexico when I was younger. And so travel has just been I love it. I think going to new places, meeting new people, experiencing new cultures is a really good way to grow yourself at a fundamental level, see how the rest of the world is living. And it's one of those things, like you can go places and get a whole new outlook on what's going on in the world. And it's really powerful. Like, I just got back from Africa for 2 months, and I went to some crazy places where they didn't have power and water. And then you go to some place like Japan, where it's the hub of technology, and you realize that those places now you can get to those places in 24 to 48 hours. You go from one to the other. So our world is so small, but it's so different in what's happening in those places. And you really realize that when you travel. And
there's another element to traveling in the fact that you're always shooting. You started your whole vlog series that you've been doing for how long? Over a year?
Basically when I was working at GoPro full time until about a year and a half ago. And I was a producer at GoPro, and so I did start to finish concept to delivery of videos. I did everything. I pretty much touched every aspect of a video except for the editing aspect, which is interesting. I had a team of editors, but I would try to take on a project once a year on my own from start to finish that I would edit, just so I knew the workflow and I could stay up to date with my editors, be able to speak the language and make requests that I knew were reasonable within their capabilities. If I'd never edited, then I might ask something that they would look at me and be like, are you serious? So I always kind of knew what they were dealing with.
Sure.
And I thought that was super important. And I thought that was one of the more valuable things that I brought to my team, was that I knew their workflow and I could relate to what they were doing. So I tried to do a video once a year. And so once I separated from GoPro, I got a camera that wasn't a GoPro. And so I still use GoPros in all of my videos, but I got my first non-GoPro camera. And it's interesting because as a videographer and a producer doing super high budget, complicated shoots, I had never changed a lens on a camera before. The shotgun, I didn't know how to do the shotgun lens, and so I remember when I got my camera, I really jumped into YouTube because it's such a great resource for videographers and making videos. And I found a couple people that I kind of became fond of, and that was the first time I ever followed someone on YouTube, and that's kind of how I started. That's how I got into YouTube, and I wanted to make videos. And so about a year and a half ago is when I started getting serious about making videos. And I do it. So I'll have spikes in my video output, and if I go on a trip and I'm feeling super inspired by it, then I'll pump out a couple videos. And it's really just, I do it for me, and so I can look back on the videos. I love the people that follow me. I'm building a YouTube audience, but it's slow. It's a slow and steady grind right now. And I love when people comment and say that they've been following for a long time. That's really inspiring. But I really make the videos for myself because I like the creative process. I like shooting. I like having the final asset that I can share with family and friends.
Yes, and that's kind of cool because that's something I've heard from multiple filmmakers or content creators that I've got to interview, and in that they feel like they get to capture a part of their life even through athletes or talent that you know in short films and all that stuff. And that's so cool. And if I could bring out one part of the Africa trip that I saw that was really cool is climbing Kilimanjaro, right? Is that which is crazy. And I was like, how did he, because I think you responded to an email of mine like right after you uploaded. I'm like, he's on the mountain right now. Like how did that go down? But I was going to ask you, how was that experience? Because that's just otherworldly to climb that.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I heard through a friend that there was this climb that was happening to raise money for these two charities in Tanzania. And I knew I was going to be in Africa at some point in the near future to support another development organization that was putting wells in Mozambique. So the wheels started rolling, and I'm an opportunist, and I'm thinking, man, maybe I could go climb Kilimanjaro and then spend some time in Africa and then go do this other development organization. And so I started emailing this guy that I heard was going to be climbing, and he was a friend of mine through social media, but I had never spent any time with him. And I just started hammering his Instagram, his Facebook. I got his number through a friend and started texting him, and he's a really well-traveled person. He's on a mission to travel to every single country in the world right now.
Oh my gosh.
And so he was in Marrakesh and Morocco, and so he's hard to point down. Finally, I got a hold of him, and he was like, I love how persistent you're being. And he's like, let's do it. He's like, fly out. And in reality, I'd already booked my flight. And I'm like trying to get permission to go on this Kilimanjaro thing. And I'd already booked my flight. And so I got all the information. I had to get insurance. And it was 2 days that I got the confirmation to go. And when I booked my flights to when the climb was starting, or from when I flew out.
And that's probably a long flight too.
And so I didn't have any of my climbing stuff. I have a backpacking kit that's pretty basic, but I didn't have any of that stuff with me. It was all in my storage unit in Hawaii. So I was at my parents' house in Oregon, and I just begged, borrowed, and stealed a kit, and I went into Portland and got some climbing stuff and really just made it happen.
Oh my gosh.
And hopped on a plane, landed in Tanzania, and I was climbing a mountain. And so I didn't really know what to expect. I was doing research in the airports and on my layovers on what to expect. How difficult is this going to be? How many people are going? I didn't know anybody in the group that I was with. I didn't really know a lot about the charities that I was supporting, but we ended up raising $61,000 for these 2 charities.
That's crazy.
And they're local charities in Tanzania, and $61,000 goes a very, very long way there.
Yeah.
When the porters are making about $10 a day.
Oh,
that's a daily salary, and that's actually not a bad salary.
Yeah, and that's so sad. That's crazy, because I think I caught on your story that you had like 1 million of their dollars or whatever is equivalent to their dollars, and it was only like how much?
It was
like
1,000. That was in $1,000. Yeah, I went to Uganda, and it was $1 million. No, that was actually 6.3 million Ugandan dollars. I think that was ended up being $1,500 or something.
Oh my
God. It was crazy.
That's
and so you go to the ATM, and if you need any substantial amount of cash, we were paying for a safari, and we needed to pay in cash, and the ATM's you're just emptying the ATMs and going to the next one.
That's crazy. It's just like spitting out cash.
But it's really, when you travel to these countries in Africa, the daily wage is $10, but everything goes down in price, and you put that in perspective, and these people that are making dollars, they're not miserable. Everyone's happy. Everyone's smiling, and it's in these countries because everyone's on the same playing field for the most part. I kind of recognize it when I go to South Africa and you're in Johannesburg. There's essentially a ruling class, and there's the haves and the have-nots. But when you're in Eastern Africa, it's more on a level playing field, and so you don't have as much animosity to the people that have stuff and the people that don't, because it's more of a level playing field. And I didn't get any impression that these people were unhappy, even though they have much less than the developing world.
Wow. Yeah, I had heard it said recently, something actually about like the tribes in Africa that are still existing that don't necessarily need to like hunt game, but they still hunt game because it's like tradition for them to do that.
And that's their way of living.
Right.
And the Western world's coming in and trying to say, this is how you should be living because this is how we're living. But sometimes you need to take a step back and be like, this is how they have been living, and they're not unhappy not having an iPhone. They don't even know that they need an iPhone, so
isn't that kind of nice?
Yeah, so they don't need to be connected 24/7. That's a Western ideology. But once you get into the more complicated situations, like in Johannesburg or in South Africa, where it's in your face, all these gadgets, then it starts to kind of creep in that in order to fit in or be cool or to get along or to be happy, that you might need this stuff. So when they're that far removed and you're out in the bush, it's a really interesting dynamic that's happening in those. We would say we were out in the bush. So these cultures that are living out in the bush in Africa.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting.
Wow, that's amazing. But that's why I think people travel, because they get.
It's very transformative when you experience this, and you're out there and you're with these people that are happy, and some of the tribes that they didn't have clean water yet. We were there giving them clean water, but they're not walking around sad or mad. That's what they know.
That's crazy.
And so they are happy, and there's love, and the kids are running around and they're playing soccer with a ball that's a bunch of plastic bags wrapped up in a vine, and they're having just as much fun as the kids that have Nikes on their feet that are playing with a $120 soccer ball. It's really
crazy.
interesting, and it's hard to understand. Even after being there, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on in Africa. It's a really complicated continent. And I had a long drive out into the bush each day with the guy who's running this charity that's putting water in there, and we had an hour and a half to 2 hours each day each way, and we would just talk and try to figure out what the heck is happening in Africa, and trying to figure out like what's right and what's wrong, and talking about this conversation with the Western culture, telling them what is the right way to do it. And it's just bizarre. It's really hard to comprehend, and I'm still trying to figure it out, and so I can't wait to go back.
I'm sure you'll be back.
I definitely will
you'll probably be back. But yeah, I had a similar when I went abroad to Italy for a summer. I think it was 2017. And even just the dynamic, even though they're definitely more civilized, the dynamic of little to no AC, barely any internet, seriously, just around that area. And that did bring me out of myself and made me start thinking. And I do think that trip that I took changed everything for me, my outlook as a person, and then came back and like just grinded. the last year. That's all I've wanted to do. And this prompts my next question, which is, I often talk about what defines success. Like, how do you, as a person, is it what you say that you've done? Like, are you happy with where you're at, with the goals you've set? Is it by society around you? And then I also talk about a lot of, the other question I ask too is, like, how hard do you have to work to get where you want to be? And those kind of are both very similar questions. And for me, I felt like I started turning a corner when I really looked both of those head on. So I wondered what, you can pick either one of those, success or, you know, how hard you have to work. You know, at what point did you feel that you noticed that? Like, was it during college? Was it like right out of college? You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, the success question comes up a lot. What defines success? How do you know when you've reached, you know, the point of your career where you are successful? And I don't think it's necessary. You don't want to compare yourself to others. I think that's what happens when people are, I'm successful when I reach this level that this other person is that I think is successful. Now I'm successful, because you're just going to find the next person above that, and you're never going to reach where you want to be. I think success is more doing what you're passionate about, what you really like what lights your soul on fire, and doing that every day. If you're doing what you really like every day, whether that's making money or not, I think that's when you are successful. I spend a lot of time out in Hawaii, and it's a very different situation out there. There's a lot of people out there that don't make a lot of money, but I think they are very successful in the fact that they're doing what they like to do every single day. And there's the surfer that doesn't have a whole lot to his name, but he is doing exactly what he wants to do from when he wakes up until he goes to sleep. And in my mind, he's a successful person.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we'll come back for a couple minutes in just a second. We're going to go to a break real quick, and we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. We're going to just kind of piggyback off of that other question that I posed to you. How hard do you have to work to get where you want to be?
I mean, work ethic is super important. Right now I've been on a little binge of self-optimization, listening to Joe Rogan and some of those, like, those people that are into self-optimization. And I think, work ethic, when it comes down to it, is super, super important. Your bread doesn't come for free. You got to work super hard to get it. And you notice that the people that are usually inspiring, they didn't get handed it. You usually respect the person that has put the most work in. So whether it's sports or editing or whatever the talent is, if you dig deep enough, they put the hours in to get there.
That's perfect. The perfect summation of that. And I'm curious about that, like those two questions, because I like hearing different people's perspectives. And I've become kind of a person who listens really well because I'm more auditory, and I just like to soak up what other people are doing, try to model myself after that. Like every video or every mount that you guys tried growing up, it was like you'd post a video and I was looking at all the edits that I used to do, and I realized, like, timeline, it was like literally within a week I was trying what you guys were doing.
Absolutely.
Because I was a big skier growing up, going up to Mammoth and dirt biking, and I did all of it, and surfing and all that stuff. I loved it. Not the best at it because I'm too big for it, but that's really cool. I mean, it's so exciting to kind of, you know, take inspiration from you guys from afar, and that's what's so beautiful about social media and YouTube. And me and Abe talked about how that's a platform for content. And back in the day when nothing was digital, it was like you had a reel of stuff that you did if you were a filmmaker that you would have to give to somebody and say, hey, watch this to get a job. But now it's like you can just go and click a link and it's on the internet.
Yeah, the amount of information that's out there at your fingertips is unbelievable. Like what I was saying when I got my camera and I was trying to figure out how to use the GH5, which is what I shoot on. I found a bunch of people that are expert filmmakers that have been doing this for years and years and years, and I can now consume a career's worth of knowledge in a couple minutes in videos. They're like, the ROI on that is unbelievable. So if you can find good sources of information, thousands of hours go into that information, and you get to consume it in minutes, hours, days, whatever that is. So find those sources of information that the experts are curating all of that to give to you for free in a couple minutes. That's a really great way to get ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And the come up is younger. I almost noticed that the other day, the amount of people with, you know, I don't know if you'd call them successful, but the little Zans of the world that are coming into the game at 17, 16 and don't, you know, they just did one thing because they watched the people around them.
Right.
That's
and I think
incredible.
they're breaking the mold too. A young person comes in with a fresh set of eyes and approaches it differently than someone who's been doing it for 10, 15 years the same way.
Right.
So they're learning from the person that's been doing it for 10 to 15 years and then putting their young, imaginative spin on it. And then they take over as the new sensei.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Well, I would not be able to finish the interview without you talking about Caleb a little bit, because I know you guys are twins. You guys are like separated, not separated. Well, what do you say? I don't know. You guys
inseparable.
Are inseparable. Yeah. And I know you guys have very similar lives, but then also I'm seen different as well. What's your relationship with him? And then after this, I'll have you do like a little into camera to promote whatever you're up to. But
So I mean, my brother and I, there's some twins that go separate paths, and then there's some twins that are, like you said, inseparable. Caleb and I were pretty inseparable from birth. We've done all the same sports, all the same activities. We have had pretty much similar hobbies our whole lives, and we were always doing it together, kind of pushing each other to take it to the next level. And so we did go to different colleges our freshman year. My brother went to UC Santa Barbara, and I went to University of Southern California, and he ended up joining the ski team in Santa Barbara, but spending pretty much every weekend with our ski team and skiing with us because our program was a little more developed. We had a house closer to the mountain. And after 1 year, he realized the benefits of being at USC and ended up transferring over to USC. And same thing with work. We started working at GoPro within the same short amount of time of each other. And we've kind of just piggybacked off of each other from the beginning. It's been really fun. And now, we've been on slightly different paths lately. We've been living in different places, going on slightly different trips. But we're always super close. We talk pretty much every single day. He was at the football game yesterday. It was awesome to be with him for that. And
that's really cool. Well, I always give my guests like a last little into camera bit to just promote whatever you've got coming up, your vlogs. I know you've got a lot of stuff. You got the Japan series with Abe coming out, all that stuff. So whatever you'd like to say.
Well, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate that. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Chris Farro, or on YouTube, which is where I've been putting more of my longer form content. And you can just type in Christopher Farro into YouTube and you'll see a bunch of videos from Africa. And I have several in the works right now. I think in social media I'm still in Uganda, but I got to move that along because I've been to a couple countries since then. And so what we were talking about earlier with video content and my YouTube and my brand on YouTube. And one thing I wanted to touch on too is when you were talking about how things are manufactured in social media. What I really like to do on my YouTube is keep it very authentic in longer form. Like I know on that Kilimanjaro series, I could have made one video that was 4 minutes long, that was a highlight reel of the whole thing. And I probably would have gotten way more traction because that's how people consume media right now, and kind of is fast. Fast highlights. And my highlight videos always are the best performing. But right now I like to create videos that tell more of a story, and I like to show the artistic process of a whole video that's 8 minutes or 10 minutes and make several of them. And that's just something that I've been liking to do recently. And so you'll notice on my YouTube that it's a little bit longer form, but I still try to keep a super high level of fidelity in shots. And it's not dragged out, but it's just a different format than I could do. I'm not chasing followers right now or chasing engagement on YouTube. I'm building something that's true to myself and keeping it true to my brand.
Which I think that's what you should be doing.
Yes, and I think in the long term, that's what people will always gravitate to, is someone who's being more authentic to their audience than someone after a couple highlight videos. If it's too manufactured, people are going to get tired with it and move on to someone that they identify with more. Yeah,
the originality is key. And because if you jump on the trend ends. But nothing about your life has been that, which is exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've always tried. I always try super hard to keep everything very true to myself.
And to be fair, nothing about GoPro itself has ever been that. Me and Abe spent a lot of time talking about that. And it's cool. I love that you've probably inspired so many more people than you know. And that's just the best part about it, because more people are getting out there getting cameras. And that's kind of what this show is about. Not specifically film, but approaching the arts from a younger age.
Yeah.
How do you get to a point where you feel like you've not made it, but a point where you feel like you've been successful in what you're doing, and you're learning and you're eating it up. So thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really cool. It's exciting. Make sure to follow along with us, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 20 Show. We got a lot more coming. This is the 3rd interview we've shot this week, which is exciting, all on the road. You'll see them in different weeks, but it's been super exciting to just kind of go after a new side of the show. We've had a lot of performers in the past, in the last couple episodes, now heading toward more film people, which is exciting for me because that's kind of my niche as well. And so we got a lot more coming for you guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you, Adam.